All right. Thank you, everyone. It is week 6 now, and we're glad to have you all here for another week of blockchain fundamentals. I'm Mateo, and this is Jesus. We're part of the dev team here, and we'll be talking about Web3 industry and applications of blockchain in real life.
So we're going to talk about some of the advantages of using blockchain instead of traditional database systems for many of the applications here and that we use in industry. First off, the decentralization. There's no central authority required for, supply chains or whatever we're going to get into. It leads to reduction in fraud, censorship, and third-party interference. There's also a lot of security and fraud prevention from using the blockchain. Cryptography-based transactions make it difficult to hack or alter data. It's known as immutability. We also have transparency. Blockchains are very public. There's a lot of nodes that reiterate the information in the blockchain, and it's easy to verify. Traceability, we could track each step and each transaction very easily. And with smart contracts, we could automate a lot of what these industries try to accomplish. So the first industry we're going to go over is supply chain management. So in the supply chain, there's the acquisition of raw materials, the manufacturing of products, shipping, distribution, and eventually the retail sale of the product. And this typically needs to be tracked by any major company. They need to know where the product is sourced, and how the product goes from raw material all the way to retail. The entire network of exchange is known as the supply chain, and they're usually managed by a centralized database ran by the company. Instead, entire supply chains can be managed and reported on the blockchain. So why would we want to do this? First is transparency. Since the entire supply chain is visible to anyone, it can easily be audited. This is important in industries where the sources of good has a strong impact, such as food and medicine. Second is companies, suppliers, and third parties can benefit from a traceable flow of information. We know where the money is exchanged, we know where the products are exchanged, and we know how inventory flows through the supply chain. Blockchain supply chain management can eliminate blind spots. So anyone within the supply chain can view the entire thing, and they know if there's been fraud or something of that sort. And the third is reduce fraudulent activity. Because the blockchain is immutable, once you kind of make a record on there, it can't change. We could tell it reduces fraudulent activity from changing the data. And fourth is smart contract integration. Payment of goods and services can be executed with the use of smart contracts. What's it called? A supplier can be automatically paid once a product reaches a certain destination, for example. These agreements can be defined in code and largely automated. Fifth is standardization. So all actors in the supply chain follow through the same rules and regulation. There's the same formatting being done. And there's kind of less of a loss of information between actors. There are some downsides to the system. First off is scalability. Blockchains can often have issues with dealing with a large number of transactions. As you remember, blocks need to be mined, and that could be a difficult process. It could be very slow. Second is privacy. Sometimes it's not always beneficial to have the entire supply chain visible. So that's not really possible with blockchain. The entire blockchain is visible, and that's not always a good idea. And the third is the Oracle problem. So once a transaction makes it onto the blockchain, we can validate the integrity of that transaction. But when we first put the transaction onto the blockchain, there's no real. You explain, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So like when it comes to blockchains, the real world and the blockchain you have to assume that the data that's being put onto the blockchain is like valid, and that like the data that you're getting in is completely like accurate of the real world. And everything after that is verifiable, but the data coming in, the inputs have to be good. And we can't always guarantee that. So something that we still have to figure out. The issue with privacy is just a matter of a different problem, a different solution for a different problem. Like in general, it's good to have supply chains to be transparent, but in doing so, you lead to issues of privacy. It's a trade-off. It's just for the things that require lots of privacy, then you can't use blockchain. For the things that require more transparency than privacy, then blockchain makes sense. So it's just a matter of different problems.
And here are just some of the companies that use blockchain as a supply chain. For example, Walmart, I think it was like in 2001, their entire food supply chain is public on the blockchain. So that means anyone can verify the source of the goods, and it just becomes a more transparent supply chain. And there are some other companies there.
Okay, so next we'll move on to DeFi. So in traditional finances or CeFi, private individuals and companies will often need to borrow money and store their assets in financial securities or accounts. And this typically involves having an intermediary like a bank. And there are some disadvantages of this, and DeFi does try to solve these disadvantages. First, financial instruments do not rely on intermediaries such as banks. And instead, blockchains are categorized in the blockchain system and are called DeFi, or decentralized finance. Cryptocurrency exchanges don't rely on a centralized system, but they use blockchain technology, and you can exchange these on the DEX, or decentralized exchange. In order to govern how these exchanges happen, we use smart contracts, which are just, like we said in previous lessons, a specific defined agreement between a lender and a borrower to create a decentralized method of obtaining financial services. So transferring goods for some other set of assets. One very common use case of DeFi is lending and borrowing. Lending involves lending a coin into the pool, and then borrowers can then take money from this pool. We use collateral, interest paid and interest received to be calculated, and using an algorithm via the smart contract, we can figure out exactly where the money should go where. This is a completely trustless system because everything is transparent through the usage of a smart contract, and anyone can just inspect the contracts that are on the chain and can pretty much guarantee exactly what's going to happen. And so they don't have this sort of like opacity that allows CeFi with an intermediary like a bank has. And say that you want to take out a loan using DeFi, you interact with a smart contract, and then you send in some sort of collateral, such as a cryptocurrency. And the smart contract will automatically send you a loan in a different cryptocurrency. And so when the loan is paid, then you'll automatically get the collateral. This has certain downsides. So again, a lot of these like downsides really come from the fact that by the nature of solving the problems that they're trying to solve, that also leads to inherent downsides. So again, it's just a trade-off. Every single thing here is a trade-off. DeFi is, well, a little bit more complex for now when it comes to exchanging currencies than perhaps some like traditional CeFi approaches. So for less tech-savvy users, this might be hard to understand. But as technology evolves, it should be able to be understandable to pretty much everyone. Smart contracts are executed and enforced cryptographically, which means that if there was a improperly written contract or some human error, it would be impossible to revert the transaction. And there's also the issue of over-collateralization. So this is pretty important. In DeFi, a borrower will typically need to send in more collateral than what they are borrowing. And this is really limiting and stuff like that. And so, there are certain proposed solutions to this issue, but currently that is the current state of lending and borrowing on DeFi. And this is an example of a tweet. So making mistakes like this, for example, this person sent 4,000 link tokens to a ghost staking contract. Because they sent it to the wrong contract, there's just no way to revert this because of the fact that you cannot revert whatever's on chain. And so yeah, this is very, I guess, even embarrassing kind of like to talk about like how you lost this much money. I believe fortunately this person was able to get they were able to work something out with this person, but again, like you can't guarantee with the fact that like everything on chain as a matter of solving the issue of lack of transparency, as a matter of solving the issue where there are just completely lax rules and like there's no strict standard. By having the strict standard, you also cause other issues like this. So that is a downside.
So now voting systems. So voting through electronic means is a popular route taken by some corporations and even nations. These systems are often centralized, meaning there's just one actor, usually the state or the company, that controls the vote, that takes in the ballots, and so on. Blockchain technologies can create a voting system that does not require any trust in that sort of central authority. Instead, with the blockchain-backed e-voting system, you can ensure the integrity and transparency of voting data. And this voting data can be easily audited. So in the context of like governmental elections, each eligible voter can receive like a unique identifier tied to a public key, and the voter can cast their vote by interacting with a smart contract, indicating their candidate. These results can be easily verified and audited by any independent party. It's all on the chain, it's all public. And the voting data is immutable, meaning if there's any voter fraud happening, or it can't happen in the form of changing votes. And for shareholder voting, this is even better because we could use tokens in where a token is like a certain share of a company, and we could use and people can vote in proportion to how much of the company they own. And this is actually known as a decentralized autonomous organization, or a DAO, where an organization uses these blockchain technologies to completely run their organization. So a DAO, it utilizes the blockchain technology for voting and finance. For instead of an IPO, they can use an ICO, which is an initial coin offering, and they could use blockchain for voting. So there are some limitations on this. As always, the security of the voter's private key is important. You can't always trust just the general person to just keep that secure. And with traditional voting systems, physical systems can be in place to validate the identity of a voter. They could have to require their ID, show their face, for example.
And so yeah, a lot of these downsides that we're mentioning for each section are just like problems that we can solve. So like we first start off with talking about how like these little like decentralized methods can improve on the existing methods, and also mention that like disadvantages at the current, which kind of highlights the opportunity available. Like there are a lot of solutions, but there are problems with those solutions, but those problems are solvable. So it's a matter of like implementing those solutions, but also trying to figure out that problem that comes with it. And if they're solvable, then that's a lot better than the existing solution, right? So anyways, we move on to insurance. Using blockchain technology, a large part of insurance industries can be digitized and implement their own blockchain. Insurance ownerships and claims can be transparently and immutably tracked on the blockchain. And this means that like you can use a lot of things that you couldn't do before, where you do specific fraud detection and prevention. Since the record is immutable, the claims and documents can be easily verified and audited. It's going to be efficient because smart contracts can be used to automate large parts of the claims process. And it's also going to be very transparent. The whole insurance process is going to be visible and open to both the insurer and the insured parties. And so again, like every single time we mention this, there's always things that you should know about the downsides. And it's just that a lot of things that again, a lot of this is a privacy transparency trade-off, where because you're gonna like sort of make transparent a lot of these records of claims and documents, some like standards such as GDPR, which is EU law about privacy, personal privacy, might not work in the face of this like radical transparency, and also people are going to have to implement these smart contracts, right? Like we automate things, right? We automate the process, but in doing so, someone actually has to code up that automation. And so, I mean, no one has been able to use AI to do this yet, but like for now, there's got to be a human behind the scenes to like make these contracts, and that's going to take time. Also going to require a bunch of change in management and structure to do such a dramatic change, although the benefits are numerous. And lots of companies are already doing this. So, and these might not be household names like the other ones like Microsoft and Walmart, but it's more and more sort of popping up in insurance companies. And that's pretty much it for today's lecture. Thank you all for attending, and we'll see you guys next time. And of course, just like always, just let us know if you have any questions come up, or just raise your hand.
Yeah, what was the question? Sorry.
Okay, so it says that one of the issues with the borrowing lending is that you can't borrow more than your collateral. That seems like a major issue, because if you have some amount of Bitcoin and you need to put that in as collateral and you can't get more than that, then I don't see the point in lending at all, ever.
Yeah.
It seems like you would never use this. And
So,
you said that there are solutions. You know what they are.
So there actually are some reasons why someone might want to do this. For example, there's like tax reasons because you don't want to sell your asset before, let's say, 1 year, because it gets taxed differently. So you might want to, for like tax reasons, to put up a certain amount for collateral and take out a loan for something else.
The primary advantage of this is tax evasion.
Tax avoidance, not evasion. Evasion is cringe. Avoidance is
Okay.
that's good.
Also, you could stake up, let's say, an NFT, like a non-fungible token. Let's say you want to keep that token and you don't want to, like, sell it. You want to keep it to yourself. You could set it up as collateral. Also, selling your digital asset could, like, let's say if you have like half of the market's like asset and you sell it, it could heavily devalue it. So you may not want to devalue that asset. So there are some reasons why you would want to take out a loan that's less than collateral.
The collateral could also be very illiquid. For example, if you collateralize with like a few NFTs that you own or something like that. But yeah, like I was talking about, like the potential solutions. I mean, the whole existing centralized finance system relies on trust, right? The idea that like you have, the bank trusts you to a certain extent to like give you a loan, and then they kind of like create finance, like kind of money out of thin air to let you take that money, like these $5 to put somewhere else, and then that you've heard of like the multiplier, right, effect of money. So we kind of want to introduce that into the system of cryptocurrency, and so there are some startups which are looking into sort of taking your existing history of like cryptocurrency exchanges and trying to give you a score based on that. And by having this credit system, then you don't always have to like over collateralize whenever you have to do a loan. We just didn't feel like it would be fair to mention this in the presentation, because there's still a lot of like work in progress when it comes to these newer credit-based solutions to crypto loans.